Leslie Marmon Silko is a Native American poet and author who focuses on educating about the differences of American Indian culture. She was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, March 5, 1948. She grew up on the border of the Laguna Pueblo Reservation in New Mexico and now resides in Arizona. My thesis is Leslie Marmon Silko is a very influential writer who accurately depicts the differences between American Indian culture and white culture. In her writings, she expands on the stories she heard throughout her childhood, spirituality, and human connections of all kinds. Leslie Marmon Silko describes her work as the attempt to identify what it is to be a half-breed or mixed-blood person. Silko is of mixed Laguna Pueblo, white, and Mexican descent. She depicts the difference between American Indian culture and white culture because she struggled with the identity between the two. Silko's childhood consisted of feeling unaccepted due to her mixed heritage. Her family was not included in her Laguna Pueblo culture as much as those who were not from mixed heritage, but Laguna culture still left a large impression on her. Silko attended the Bureau of Indian Affairs schools until 5th grade, then went to a Catholic school located in Albuquerque, finally went to the University of New Mexico where she studied English. Silko attended law school, but eventually left to pursue her career in writing. Leslie Silko was married twice. Her first marriage was in 1965 to Richard Chapman, and they had one child named Robert Chapman. In 1970, she married John Silko, and they had a child together as well. Silko went on to teach as well as write. She has taught English at Navajo Community College and the University of New Mexico, but now teaches at the University of Arizona, Tucson. Silko had two main influences. Silko and her two sisters were often taken care of by their grandmother and great-grandmother. This is where she heard and learned many of the traditional stories of the Laguna people. These stories influenced her literary work as well as her identity. Silko has won many awards. She won the American Book Award in 1980 for her most well-known book, Ceremony. She was awarded the MacArthur Foundation Grant in 1981 and in 2000 the Lannan Literary Award for Fiction. Silko's literature is heavily based on stories and legends she heard as a young girl, many from her grandmother and great-grandmother. A lot of her works focused on community and traditions in helping cope through life. She is well known for incorporating poetry into many of her novels. The way I heard it was, in the old days, long time ago, they had this scalp society for warriors who killed or touched dead enemies. Silko was heavily influenced by the Native American stories and storytellers, and this quote is a great example of that. Silko's first published writing were a series of short stories such as The Man to Send the Rain Clouds, and a volume of poetry called Laguna Women, which had 18 poems and 2 illustrations, which received the Pushcart Prize for Poetry. The Man to Send Rain Clouds was Silko's first big short story. It was published in 1969 in the New Mexico Quarterly. This story brought her great recognition and was awarded the National Endowment for Humanities Discovery Grant. Ceremony, the book we are reading in class, was published in 1977. Silko and is Silko's most well-known novel. This novel is about a part Linguino World War II veteran and his journey to overcoming PTSD by reconnecting with his native heritage. In 1973, Silko moved to Ketchikan, Alaska. In Alaska, she wrote Ceremony, which transformed over time in Alaska. While writing the book, she suffered from depression and has called her book A Ceremony of Staying Sane. Storyteller was published in 1981, a few years after Ceremony. Storyteller was a collection of poems, short stories, and photographs passed down from her family. This was Silko's second published book and was heavily inspired by traditional Lingüina Pueblo storytelling. Leslie Silko went on to publish many more books, including Yellow Woman and The Ocean Story. She recently, in 2019, was involved with the book Native Voices, which is a book made up of a collection of poems and essays which was meant to celebrate the Native American culture. Leslie Silko's poetry is known for being lyrical in style, containing stories from her family while keeping the oral storytelling style of her grandmother and great-grandmother. This can be seen in much of Silko's work. A great example of this is her collection of poems in Lingüina Women.